The morning sun, characteristic of London, streamed through the enormous glass windows of the executive office. On the top floor of the most imposing building in Canary Wharf, Raphael Montgomery observed the city at his feet with the same coldness with which he analyzed the numbers on his screen. At 42, the CEO of Montgomery Enterprises was known in the market as the Iceman, a nickname he carried with secret pride. The Patek Philippe watch on his wrist showed exactly 7:30 a.m. when his assistant knocked on the door. Punctual as always, Raphael thought without taking his eyes off the screen. Enter Marina. Marina Collins, 26, entered the office silently. Dark hair pulled back in an impeccable bun, a perfectly tailored grey suit, precise and discreet steps. 3 years as Raphael's personal assistant had transformed her into the perfect professional. Invisible when not needed, efficient when summoned. Good morning, Mr. Montgomery. The merger reports with Tech Global are updated in your folder. The board confirms the meeting for 2 p.m. and your jet is prepared to depart at 5 p.m. for dinner with the Chinese in Manchester. Raphael did not thank her. He never did. He merely gave an almost imperceptible nod while continuing to analyze the financial spreadsheets. Marina, accustomed to the silence, placed a folder on the table and turned to leave. The lawyers from Hamilton & Associates confirmed they will be here at 10 a.m. to finalize the details of the $500 million negotiation. This time, Raphael looked at her. The negotiation with European investment funds for the acquisition of the largest supermarket chain in the Midlands was the pinnacle of his career. £500 million that would consolidate Montgomery Enterprises as one of the largest holdings in the country. Coffee. No sugar. That was all he said. Marina nodded and left. As she closed the door, she put a hand to her chest. The pain she had felt for weeks was more intense today, but she couldn't show weakness. She couldn't lose this job. It was all she had. While pouring coffee into the French porcelain cup, Marina felt her vision blur. She took a deep breath, discreetly leaning against the counter of the executive pantry. Felicity, the financial director's assistant, noticed her discomfort. "Are you all right, Marina?" "Yes, just a bit tired. I worked late yesterday preparing the presentation for today's meeting." Marina forced a smile as she picked up the cup. She couldn't fail, not today. It was the most important day for Raphael. The chest pain increased as she straightened up, but she ignored the signs as she had been doing for months. Her salary barely covered the rent of her small apartment in the outskirts and her underground fares. She hadn't had health insurance since her previous employer went bankrupt. In the corridor, she passed Andrew Hayes, the company's CFO and Raphael's right-hand man. He always treated her with a respect her boss never showed. "Good morning, Marina. How are you feeling?" "You look pale." "I'm fine, Mr. Hayes. Thank you for asking." Andrew gave her a worried look but didn't press. He knew well the culture of sacrifice Raphael imposed on his company. He himself had tried to argue several times against the low salaries of entry-level employees without success. Upon reaching Raphael's office door, Marina took a deep breath, ignoring the dizziness. She knocked lightly and entered after hearing the usual dry enter. "Your coffee, Mr. Montgomery." As she placed the cup on the table, she felt the world spin. The pain in her chest exploded like 1,000 needles piercing her flesh. The cup slipped from her fingers, spilling the dark liquid over the negotiation documents. The sound of porcelain breaking was the last thing Marina heard before collapsing to the floor. "What the devil?" Raphael stood up furiously, observing the stained documents. It was only when he rounded the desk that he noticed Marina fallen, her breathing weak, her face pale as paper. "Marina? Marina!" He knelt awkwardly, unsure of what to do. "Someone call an ambulance!" Andrew rushed into the office, drawn by the shouts. He saw Marina unconscious and immediately grabbed the phone. "NHS Emergency Services emergency. An employee has collapsed. She's pale and her breathing is weak." While Andrew relayed the information, Raphael looked at his assistant as if seeing her for the first time. He knew nothing about her beyond the fact that she was extremely efficient. He didn't know where she lived, if she had family, what her dreams were. At that moment, he felt an inexplicable emptiness. The paramedics arrived with impressive speed. As they examined Marina, they asked questions Raphael couldn't answer. "Does she have any known medical conditions?" "I don't know." "Is she taking any medication?" "I have no idea." Does she have any relatives we can contact? I don't know. One of the paramedics checked Marina's phone. She only has one emergency contact registered here. Raphael Montgomery. The paramedic looked at Raphael, who was paralyzed. That's me. Are you related to her? No, I'm her boss. The paramedic seemed surprised but didn't comment. We need to take her immediately. Her vital signs are unstable. Are you coming with us? Raphael looked at his watch. 9:45 a.m. The lawyers would arrive in 15 minutes for the most important meeting of his career. The £500 million negotiation he had been preparing for years. Mr. Montgomery? The paramedic insisted. Andrew placed a hand on his shoulder. Go with her, Raphael. I'll receive the lawyers and explain the situation. We'll reschedule for tomorrow. Raphael felt an internal conflict he had never experienced before. In 20 years of his career, he had never put anything above business. He had never missed a meeting, much less one of this importance. Sir? The paramedic waited as they prepared Marina for transport. Raphael looked at his assistant's pale face. Why was he her only emergency contact? Where was her family? Why had he never cared to know? I'll go with her. The words left his mouth before he could ponder them. Andrew looked as surprised as Raphael himself. Tell the lawyers we had an emergency. Cancel everything. The dinner with the Chinese too. Cancel. Are you sure? I am. As he accompanied the stretcher to the elevator, Raphael felt a strange sensation. For the first time in years, he wasn't in control. And for the first time in his life, something beyond business seemed more important. In the NHS helicopter cutting across the London sky, Raphael looked at Marina as if seeing an incomplete puzzle. Who was this woman who spent 10 hours a day in his office, really? Why did he, the coldest man in the British financial market, feel that tightness in his chest when he saw her collapse? St. Thomas's Hospital in South London received the patient with the efficiency its reputation promised. While Marina was rushed to the emergency room, Raphael stayed behind in the aseptic lobby, with a registration form in his hands and no idea how to fill out half the requested information. Full name? Marina Collins. Age? He believed around 25 or 26. Address? He had no idea. Medical history? Completely unknown. Family contact? Apparently none existed. Raphael's phone rang incessantly. Andrew, the European lawyers, the Chinese investors. The world he had built needed him, but for the first time he chose to stay where he was, in a hospital waiting for news of an employee he barely knew. 3 hours passed. Raphael remained seated in the private waiting room of St. Thomas's Hospital, a reserved space his name and influence instantly secured. Despite the comfort of the leather armchairs and the gourmet coffee offered by the staff, he felt out of place. It was the first time in years he was completely alone, without assistants, without directors, without people waiting for his orders. His phone kept ringing. He ignored calls from Andrew and the lawyers, but answered when he saw Julia's name, his ex-wife. Raphael, Andrew called me. What happened? You never cancel meetings. Marina, my assistant, she collapsed in the office. I'm at the hospital. A silence on the other end of the line. You? At the hospital because of an employee? Julia's surprise was evident in her voice. During their 7 years of marriage, she had always complained about his coldness, his inability to put people above business. That had been the main reason for their divorce 3 years prior. I know it sounds strange. Strange is an understatement, Raphael. When your mother had that stroke, you only visited her once, and even then you brought your laptop to work from her hospital room. Raphael felt the weight of those words. Julia had always been direct, one of the qualities that initially attracted him and later became unbearable. Something about this situation, it's different, he admitted. Different how? I'm her only emergency contact. She has no family as far as I understand. Another silence, longer this time. Perhaps you're finally realizing there are things more important than multi-million-pound deals. Before Raphael could respond, a doctor approached. Tall, gray-haired, grave expression. I have to hang up, he said hastily to Julia. Mr. Montgomery, I'm Dr. Ethan Turner, a nephrologist. Can we discuss Miss Collins' condition? Raphael nodded, hanging up the phone. He followed the doctor to a small meeting room, feeling a tightness in his chest he couldn't explain. Miss Collins' situation is quite serious, Dr. Turner began, adjusting his glasses. She has intermediate-stage kidney failure, severe anemia, and a concerning case of malnutrition. Tests show she has been neglecting her health for many months. Raphael blinked several times, trying to process the information. How did this happen? She seemed fine. She worked normally. The doctor gave a sad smile. Many people work normally while they're getting sick inside, Mr. Montgomery, especially when they can't afford to stop. The veiled criticism did not go unnoticed. Raphael felt his face flush. She needs immediate treatment. Dialysis, transfusions, intensive nutritional support. We checked and she doesn't have health insurance. Do you know if she can afford the treatment costs? Raphael felt a punch to the stomach. Marina worked daily with documents involving millions, organized his schedule of meetings with billionaires, served coffee in cups that cost more than her monthly salary, and she didn't have health insurance. What's her salary? He asked suddenly. The doctor looked confused. Pardon? I'm not asking you, Raphael murmured, already reaching for his phone. He dialed Andrew. Andrew, I need you to immediately check how much the company pays Marina Collins. And I want to know why she isn't on our corporate health plan. Andrew was silent for a few seconds before responding. Raphael, you know that administrative assistants are not part of the staff who receive the premium plan. It was your decision to cut costs 2 years ago. They only have a basic plan that covers simple consultations, not hospitalizations or complex treatments. And the salary? £2,200. You yourself set the ceiling for that category. Raphael hung up without saying goodbye, feeling a wave of nausea. Marina lived in London, one of the most expensive cities in the country. How did she survive on that salary? Where did she live? How did she eat? Mr. Montgomery? The doctor waited patiently. Raphael straightened in his chair. I will cover all costs. I want her to receive the best possible treatment. Money is not an issue. Dr. Turner nodded, showing no surprise. He had probably seen many rich bosses paying for employee treatments, more out of guilt than empathy. Can I see her? She's sedated now. She'll remain that way for a few hours while we begin the most urgent treatment. I suggest you go home and return tomorrow. No, I'll stay. The doctor raised his eyebrows but didn't argue. As you wish. The nurse will let you know when she wakes up. Raphael returned to the waiting room but couldn't sit still. He walked through the white aseptic corridors, observing patients and relatives. Everyone there had someone. Marina had no one except him, a boss who barely knew her full name. His phone rang again. The director of the European Fund, impatient about rescheduling the meeting. Raphael took a deep breath and, against his better judgment, turned off the device. He asked the receptionist to use one of the hospital's computers. He needed to know more about Marina. In his office, there was a folder with basic information on each employee. With a few phone calls, he gained remote access and opened the file. Marina Sylvia Collins, 26 years old. Originally from Nottingham in the Midlands. Graduated in business administration from St. Jude's University, with a specialization in international trade. Hired 3 years ago, after the acquisition of the small export company where she worked. Address Dr. Seng Street, Bellevue, a central neighborhood but not exactly upscale. How could she live there on that salary? The file had little more than that. It was as if Marina were a ghost, existing only within the walls of Montgomery Enterprises. What did she do on weekends? Did she have friends? Hobbies? A boyfriend? Parents? Siblings? Raphael closed his eyes, trying to remember any personal detail Marina might have mentioned during the 3 years. Nothing. He had never asked, and she had never offered. Their relationship was purely professional and unidirectional. She knew everything about his life, his preferences, his commitments, while he knew absolutely nothing about her. Guilt began to grow like a snowball. While he lived in his triplex penthouse in Kensington, with a driver, helicopter and private jet, his assistant could barely pay rent and apparently didn't even eat properly. Mr. Montgomery? Raphael looked up. A middle-aged nurse observed him with curiosity. Would you like some coffee? You've been here for many hours. He checked his watch. 7:30 p.m., almost 10 hours since Marina had collapsed in his office. Thank you. Coffee would be good. The nurse smiled gently. You must care a lot about her. Most bosses just pay the bills and leave. Raphael didn't know what to answer. He didn't like Marina. He simply didn't know her well enough for that. He was here because, why, guilt? Curiosity? Or could it be something deeper? A flicker of humanity he no longer recognized in himself. She is important, was all he managed to say. The nurse nodded understandingly. The doctor said she might wake up in a few hours. If you want to rest a bit, we have a visitor's room available. I prefer to stay here. Thank you. When the nurse walked away, Raphael took out his phone and, against his better judgment, turned it back on. There were 27 missed calls and 43 messages. The merger, the Europeans, the Chinese. His empire needed him. He took a deep breath and called Andrew. How is she? Was Andrew's first question, which surprised Raphael. Stable, but the situation is serious. Kidney failure, anemia, malnutrition. My God, I noticed she was paler in recent weeks, but I never imagined... Why didn't you tell me anything? Raphael felt a pang of irritation. Would you really have cared, Raphael? Andrew's question was like a punch to the gut. For the past 2 years, you rejected all my proposals to increase administrative staff salaries. You said they were easily replaceable. Raphael felt the weight of his own words coming back to haunt him. It was true. He treated lower-level employees as disposable parts in a machine. Things will change, Andrew. I'll call you tomorrow. Raphael hung up and stared back at the white corridor. The image of Marina collapsing in his office wouldn't leave his mind. She had always been so competent, so present, so invisible. How had he never noticed how much she was fading away? Around 11 p.m., Dr. Turner reappeared. Mr. Montgomery, she's waking up. She's still weak and a little confused, but you can see her for a few minutes. Raphael followed the doctor to the private room he had arranged for Marina. Upon entering, he almost didn't recognize her. Without her impeccable posture and formal uniform, lying between white sheets and connected to various equipment, she looked much younger and infinitely more fragile. Her eyes, a deep brown that Raphael had never truly noticed before, opened slowly. When she saw him, they widened in alarm. Mr. Montgomery. Her voice was just a whisper. The meeting. The European lawyers. Raphael felt something break inside him. Her first concern, even on the verge of collapse, was with work. With the meeting, he had missed to be there. Don't worry about that now, he said, his voice softer than it had ever been in the workplace. Focus on getting better. Marina tried to sit up, agitated. But the negotiation, the 500 million... Shh. Raphael approached the bed, hesitant. That can wait. Your health is more important now. Her eyes filled with tears, and Raphael realized that those words probably sounded completely strange coming from him. The Iceman saying something was more important than money? Why are you here? She asked, confused. It was a simple question, but Raphael had no simple answer. Why was he there? Why hadn't he returned to the office after ensuring she received treatment? Why did he feel that lump in his throat seeing her so vulnerable? Because you had no one else, he finally replied, surprising himself with the honesty. And no one should be alone at a time like this. The following days passed at a strange pace for Raphael. For the first time in his adult life, business was not his priority. He established a routine that would have been unthinkable a week earlier. Mornings at the hospital with Marina, afternoons at the office handling essentials, and evenings back at the hospital. The negotiation with the Europeans was postponed, to the shock of everyone in the financial market. The Raphael Montgomery everyone knew would never postpone a £500 million deal. Rumors spread. Was he ill? Did he have a serious family problem? Was he planning to sell the company? In truth, he was slowly rediscovering his lost humanity. On the 4th day of hospitalization, Marina was considerably better. Color gradually returned to her face, and she could now sit up and converse for longer periods. Raphael entered the room that morning carrying a small white orchid. Good morning, Marina. How are you feeling today? She was still surprised by this new Raphael. The man who had never cared to know how she was, now asked 3 times a day with genuine interest. Better. Thank you. Dr. Turner said my tests are showing good progress. Raphael placed the orchid on the bedside table. It was the first time he had brought flowers. He felt strangely shy. I didn't know if you liked flowers. Marina looked at the delicate plant with a small smile. I love orchids. Thank you. An awkward silence settled between them. They were 2 people who spent hours together daily, but who in truth were complete strangers. "Marina, we need to talk," Raphael finally said, sitting in the armchair beside the bed. "About how this happened." "About you." She looked away, visibly uncomfortable. "There's not much to say, Mr. Montgomery. I wasn't taking proper care of myself. It was my irresponsibility." "Raphael." "What?" "Just call me Raphael." "Outside the office, please." She nodded awkwardly. "Raphael." He took a deep breath. "The doctor explained your situation to me. Kidney failure, anemia, malnutrition. This doesn't happen overnight, Marina. Why did you never seek help? Why did you never say anything?" Silent tears began to stream down her face. Raphael felt terrible for making her cry, but he needed to understand. "I couldn't risk losing my job," she finally said in a low voice. "I couldn't show weakness." "Weakness? Marina, this is basic health. Hurting you. You wouldn't understand." Raphael moved closer, feeling a mixture of guilt and indignation. "Try to explain it to me, please." Marina wiped her tears with the back of her hands and after a long silence began to speak. Her voice, normally firm and professional, was trembling and low. "I grew up in an orphanage in Nottingham. I never knew my parents. Since I was little, I learned that I needed to be stronger, smarter, and more dedicated than everyone else to achieve anything in life." Raphael felt a lump in his throat. He had imagined several stories for Marina, but never this one. "I got a scholarship to study business administration at night while working during the day. When I graduated, I went to work at Nottingham Exporters. It was a small company, but I was happy to have a job in my field." "Nottingham Exporters," Raphael repeated, remembering. "We acquired it 3 years ago." Marina nodded. "When I learned that Montgomery Enterprises was going to buy the export company, I did everything to stand out. I worked overtime, learned English and Spanish on my own, studied the financial market. I needed to ensure I wouldn't be laid off in the restructuring. And not only were you not laid off, but you were promoted to executive assistant," Raphael completed, beginning to understand. "It was the happiest day of my life," Marina confessed. "A job at the largest investment company in the country, working directly with the CEO. It was much more than I had ever dreamed of." Raphael felt the weight of the irony. What for him was just another acquisition and another anonymous employee, for her represented the culmination of a life of struggles. "But the salary," Marina looked away again. "It was much more than I earned at the export company. I was grateful, but insufficient to live decently in London." She shrugged as if that were an irrelevant detail. "I managed. I shared a small apartment with 2 other girls. I saved on transport by using the underground and buses. I brought packed lunches from home and went without eating when money was tight," Raphael completed, feeling his guilt grow. "And the health insurance. The company's basic plan didn't cover the specialists I needed to see. I tried to save money to pay for private consultations, but some emergency always came up. The rent increased, one of my flatmates moved out." Raphael closed his eyes, visualizing her life. While he spent millions on yachts and properties around the world, his personal assistant could barely afford a doctor. "Why me?" he asked suddenly. "Why am I your only emergency contact?" Marina blushed intensely. I don't have family. The few friends I have couldn't help financially if something happened. And you always seemed so powerful, so capable of solving any problem. It was foolish of me, I'm sorry." "It wasn't foolish," Raphael said, surprising both of them. "I just regret not having deserved that trust before." Marina observed him with curiosity. This was not the Raphael Montgomery she knew. The cold, calculating man who measured people by the value they added to his business. "There's something else," Raphael said, not as a question but as an affirmation. "You're hiding something." Marina looked alarmed. "What are you talking about? You chose to work at Nottingham Exporters, knowing I would buy it. You did everything to become my personal assistant. Why?" The heart monitor beside the bed registered an acceleration in Marina's heartbeat. She gripped the sheet between her fingers, unable to face Raphael. "It's just a coincidence. I didn't know the company would be bought when I started working there." Raphael tilted his head, studying her. In 3 years of working together, he had learned to recognize when Marina was being less than completely honest, like when she said a difficult client had just rescheduled, when, in reality, they had cancelled the meeting. "Marina, look at me." Reluctantly, she met his gaze. Whatever the truth is, I need to know. I've been here for almost a week, abandoned important negotiations, cancelled international commitments. I deserve to know what's going on." Her hands trembled. "You'll fire me." "I won't." "Yes, you will. When you know the truth, you'll think I manipulated you, that I'm an opportunist." Raphael felt a shiver run down his spine. "Try me." Marina took a deep breath as if gathering courage for a dive into unknown waters. "I didn't grow up in a traditional orphanage exactly. It was a care home run by nuns in Nottingham. When I turned 18, Sister Constance called me for a talk. She handed me a letter and a small box." Raphael listened attentively without interrupting. "The letter was from my biological mother. She wrote it before she passed away. She asked the nuns to give it to me when I was an adult." "And what did the letter say?" Marina's eyes filled with tears again. "It said she was very young when she got pregnant. A nursing student. The father was a business administration student from a wealthy London family. They met during his holiday in Nottingham. It was a quick romance, and by the time she discovered the pregnancy, he had already returned to London." Raphael felt a growing discomfort. There was something in that story that resonated in a disturbing way. She wrote that she tried to find him, but his family prevented her from speaking to him. They offered her money to abort, but she refused. She decided to have me and raise me alone, but she had complications during childbirth. "And in the box?" Raphael asked, his voice suddenly hoarse. "There was an old photo, a gold chain with a small emerald pendant and a newspaper clipping." Raphael paled. He knew a chain like that very well. His brother Gregory wore an identical one, a gift from their grandmother when he entered university to study business administration. Gregory, who had died in a car accident 15 years ago at 25. "The newspaper clipping," Marina continued, now crying openly, "was an obituary for your brother, Gregory Montgomery." The world seemed to stop for Raphael, the pieces fitting into a macabre puzzle. "Are you saying that Gregory Montgomery was my father? According to my mother's letter, he never knew of my existence. His family prevented her from contacting him, and when she finally gathered the courage to seek him out directly, she discovered he had passed away." Raphael felt as if the air had been sucked out of the room. His older brother, whom he idolized and whose shadow he had tried to overcome his entire life, had a daughter. A daughter who was now here before him, after 3 years of working as his assistant. "Is that why you looked for work at the export company? Is that why you did everything to become my assistant? To get close?" Marina nodded, tears now flowing freely. "At first, I just wanted to know my father's family, to know where I came from. After so much time working with you, seeing how you treated people, how cold and calculating you were, I gave up the idea of telling the truth. I was afraid of your reaction, afraid of losing my job, which was all I had." Raphael stood up abruptly, feeling betrayed, manipulated, used. But then he looked at Marina, at his niece, fragile and scared in the hospital bed, and all the anger dissipated. "Do you have any proof of this?" "Besides your mother's letter," Marina hesitated. "Just the photo, the chain, and the newspaper clipping. They're at my apartment, but if you don't believe me, I understand. It sounds like a made-up story, I know." Raphael ran a hand through his hair, trying to process the avalanche of information. "Gregory was 22 when he died. You're 26. The dates match. He was in his 3rd year of university when he met my mother, during his summer holiday in Nottingham." Raphael vaguely remembered Gregory mentioning a trip to Nottingham with university friends. It was a distant memory, almost 3 decades ago when he was still a teenager admiring his older brother. "What was your mother's name?" Cecilia. Cecilia Collins. She studied nursing at the University of Nottingham." Raphael closed his eyes, trying to remember if Gregory had ever mentioned that name. Nothing came to mind. But that meant nothing. His brother had always been discreet about his romantic conquests. "We need a DNA test," he finally said. Marina seemed relieved by the absence of immediate rejection. "I understand." "That's fair." Raphael sat back down, stunned. If this were true, and something inside him said it was, his life had just completely changed. "Why did you never approach the Montgomery family directly? Why this indirect approach?" Marina smiled sadly. "I tried at first. I called the company headquarters a few times, but it never got past the secretary. I sent letters that were never answered. Montgomery Enterprises has entire departments dedicated to filtering unwanted contacts. Raphael nodded. It was true. As a public figure and billionaire, he received hundreds of requests, sad stories, and attempts at approach every month. His security and public relations team blocked almost everything. When I realized the direct path wouldn't work, I decided I needed to approach through merit. I wanted that when I finally told the truth, you would already know me as a professional, not just as someone making a claim. It was an intelligent approach. Typical of a Montgomery, Raphael thought with a mixture of admiration and shock. Why now? Why didn't you tell me before? Marina wiped her tears. It never seemed like the right time. You were always so distant, so focused on business. I thought you'd just see me as another opportunist, trying to get money from the family. And over time I convinced myself that maybe it was better that way. Being close was enough. Raphael thought about how many times he had been rude to her, how many times he had treated her like an object, a disposable tool. And all that time she was his niece, the daughter of the brother he had loved so much. I'm sorry, he said, surprising both of them with the sincerity in his voice. I'm sorry for everything. The lab sent the DNA test results in record time. It was no surprise. When Raphael Montgomery requested urgency, the world bowed. He was alone in his office when the email arrived. His fingers hesitated over the mouse, feeling the weight of the moment. That result could change everything, or confirm what his heart already knew. He clicked to open the document. Probability of kinship, 99.9998%. Raphael closed his eyes, letting the reality fully hit him. Marina was his niece, Gregory's daughter, his own flesh and blood. In the 10 days since the revelation at the hospital, Raphael had lived as if in a trance. He conducted business automatically, delegated important decisions to Andrew, something unthinkable until then. His mind was consumed by memories of his brother and the discovery of the niece he never knew existed. Marina had been discharged the day before, but Raphael had insisted she rest. He had arranged a comfortable temporary apartment, 24-hour nurses and a private chef. It was the least he could do. Now, with the result in hand, there was no escaping the truth. He picked up the phone and called her. Hello? Marina's voice still sounded fragile. We got the result. A silence on the other end of the line. And? She finally asked, her voice barely containing her nervousness. Positive. Something to a 98% certainty. He heard her let out a long sigh, followed by a muffled sound. She was crying. Can I come over? We need to talk. Yes, of course, she replied between sobs. Raphael called his driver, and 40 minutes later was at the elegant apartment in Chelsea that he had rented for Marina. She awaited him in the living room, pale but visibly better than in the hospital days. She wore a simple tracksuit, something she would never wear in the office, and looked much younger and more vulnerable. They looked at each other for a long moment, both uncertain how to act in this new reality. They were no longer boss and assistant. They were uncle and niece, family. May I see? Marina finally asked, extending her hand. Raphael handed her the folder with the result. She read it carefully, tears falling again. I always knew, she said in a low voice. Ever since I saw his first photo. We have the same smile, you know. Raphael nodded. Now that he knew the truth, the similarities were obvious. The shape of her face, the way she furrowed her brow when concentrating, everything reminded him of Gregory. Why didn't you show me the proof you had? The letter, the photo, the chain? Marina slowly stood up and went to the bedroom, returning with a small wooden box. It's all here. I never part with it. She opened the box and first took out a yellowed envelope. My mother's letter. Raphael took it carefully as if touching a sacred relic. The handwriting was delicate, feminine. He began to read. My dearest daughter, if you are reading this letter, it means you have come of age without me by your side. This is my greatest pain and greatest regret. There are so many things I wish I could have shared with you, so many lessons I wish I could have taught. But there is a truth you deserve to know about your father, your family, your origins. Your father's name was Gregory Montgomery, a business administration student at the University of London, from a wealthy and traditional London family. We met when he came to Nottingham with friends in January 1994. It was a quick, intense and true love. When I discovered I was pregnant, he had already returned to London. I tried to contact him several times, but his family prevented it. His mother offered me money to solve the problem. I refused. You were never a problem for me, my daughter. You were always my greatest joy. Years later, when I finally gathered the courage to seek him out directly, I discovered he had suffered an accident. He was no longer with us. He never knew of your existence. Do not bear resentment towards this family. They were merely protecting their son from what they considered a trap. They were wrong about me, but their intentions came from love. If one day you wish to know them, seek them out. You have that right, but do it for yourself, not for me. The chain that accompanies this letter was your father's. The nurse who cared for him after the accident gave it to me when she learned my story. The emerald matches your eyes, his same eyes. Be strong, be fair, be happy. You carry the best of both of us. With all my love, your mother, Cecilia. Raphael finished reading with moist eyes. The letter breathed sincerity. Then Marina handed him an old photograph. In it, a young Gregory embraced a beautiful dark-haired girl with a shy smile, both in front of a pub in Nottingham. My mother only kept this photo. Back then, there were no cell phones with cameras or social media. Lastly, she showed him the chain. Raphael recognized it instantly, the emerald pendant in white gold that his grandmother had given Gregory when he started university. Raphael had received a similar one, but with a ruby. He wore that chain all the time, he murmured, holding the jewel with reverence. Even in the hospital after the accident, it wasn't with him when we said goodbye. Marina closed her eyes. The nurse knew my mother's story and felt compassion. Raphael returned the chain to Marina. It belongs to you. It's your inheritance. She nodded, placing it back in the box. I never had the courage to wear it. It seemed presumptuous. Wear it. With pride. A silence heavy with emotion filled the room. There was so much to say, so much to process. What happens now? Marina finally asked. Raphael took a deep breath. It was the question that had tormented him for days. You are a Montgomery. My niece, Gregory's daughter. This changes everything. I don't want your money, she said quickly. It was never about that. I know. But you deserve your place in the family. Gregory, his voice faltered when he mentioned his brother. Gregory would have been proud of the woman you've become. A fighter, intelligent, dedicated. Marina's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. Do you really think so? I'm certain. He was the best of us. More human, more compassionate. You inherited that from him. Marina gave a small smile. I wish I had known him so much. I can tell you about him, Raphael offered. Everything I remember. What he was like as a child. The mischief we got into, his dreams. I'd love that. Raphael stood up and walked to the window, observing the city below. The same London where his brother had grown up, dreamed, lived and loved. The city that now sheltered his daughter. Marina, I want you to move into my house. She looked surprised. Your house? But it's enormous and empty. It always has been. I have 6 bedrooms and have lived alone since the divorce. You don't have to accept if you don't want to, but it would be good to have family around again. She hesitated. Are you sure? It would be a big change for both of us. Absolutely. You are a Montgomery. Your place is with us. With me. Marina wiped a tear. And work? Will I still be your assistant? Raphael shook his head. No, that would be completely inappropriate now. In fact, I have other plans for you. What plans? Gregory studied to take over the company one day. It was my father's plan. When he passed, I took his place. But now you are here. Your background is in business administration. You have market experience. If you wish, you can take on a suitable position in the company. Learn the business. Follow in your father's footsteps. The shock was visible on Marina's face. But I don't have experience for that. I'm just an assistant. No, you're much more. You always have been. I just didn't allow you to show it. That will change. Raphael's phone rang. It was Andrew, probably with some business emergency. For the first time in his life, he rejected the call without hesitation. I want to visit the care home where you grew up, he said suddenly. I want to meet the nuns who cared for you. I want to know everything about your life, Marina. The 30 years we lost. She smiled. a luminous smile that so resembled Gregory's that it made Raphael's heart ache. "We can visit St. Cecilia's home whenever you want. Sister Constance is still there. She'll be so moved. We'll go next weekend, and we'll bring a substantial donation." That institution cared for Raphael Montgomery's niece. It deserves the best. Marina stood up and on an impulse hugged Raphael. He stiffened at first, unaccustomed to physical contact, but soon his arms wrapped around his niece. It was their first embrace, the first genuinely familial contact in years. When they separated, both had tears in their eyes. "Uncle Raphael," she said, testing the words. The title hit him like a wave. Uncle. He was an uncle. He had family. "Niece," he replied, his voice choked. At that moment, Raphael's phone rang again. This time he looked at the screen. The call was from his mother, Eleanor Montgomery, a woman in her early 70s, rigid and traditional, who controlled the family with an iron fist even after her husband's death. The same woman who, according to the letter, had tried to buy Cecilia's silence. "I need to answer." "It's your grandmother." Marina paled. "My grandmother? You're going to tell her?" Raphael nodded. "She needs to know. The whole family needs to know." He answered the call, putting it on speaker so Marina could hear. "Hello, Mother." "Raphael, where are you? Andrew called me. Said you've been acting strangely. Cancelled important meetings, delegated decisions. Are you ill?" The concern in her voice was genuine, but focused on the business consequences, not her son's well-being. Typical of Eleanor Montgomery. "I'm not ill, Mother. I'm fine. Better than I've been in many years, actually." "Then what's going on?" "The merger with the Europeans." "Mother," Raphael interrupted, "I need you to come to my apartment tonight. I have something important to tell you." "Something about Gregory." The silence on the other end of the line was dense. Gregory was almost a taboo in the family. The pain of his loss had never truly healed. "What about Gregory?" Eleanor finally asked, her voice cautious. "It's better if we talk in person. Can you come at 8 p.m.? I'll be there." Raphael hung up and looked at Marina, who was trembling slightly. "She's going to hate me," she whispered. "No, she won't. She might not show it at first, but you are a part of Gregory, her favorite son. It will be a shock, but she will embrace you." Marina didn't look convinced. "What if she doesn't believe it? What if she thinks it's a setup, an attempt to get money?" Raphael pointed to the DNA test result on the table. "This is science, not opinion. And even if she doubts initially, just look at you. You have his eyes, his smile, even some gestures. It's impossible not to see." Marina nodded nervously. "Don't worry," Raphael continued. "I'm by your side now. You are a Montgomery. No one will deny you that again." The hours that followed were surreal. Raphael cancelled all his appointments for the day, something he had never done before, and spent the entire afternoon talking with Marina. He told stories about Gregory as a child, showed old photos on his phone, spoke about family traditions. It was as if a dam had broken. Words, memories, and emotions that had been contained for years now flowed freely. Marina listened to everything with bright eyes, absorbing every detail about the father she had never known. Occasionally, she shared stories of her own childhood in the nuns' home, her struggle to study, her small triumphs and great difficulties. "What was it like growing up without parents?" Raphael asked at one point, immediately realizing how inappropriate the question was. But Marina was not offended. Difficult, but not as bad as it could have been. The sisters were strict but fair. "And there were other children. We formed a kind of family. Even so, I'm sorry you went through that." She shrugged. "It wasn't your fault. It was our family's fault. If my mother had allowed Cecilia to speak with Gregory, we can't change the past," Marina interrupted gently. "Only the present and the future." Raphael nodded, admiring her wisdom and lack of bitterness. He thought about how many times he had held grudges for much smaller offenses. How much he had to learn from this young woman, who, despite all the difficulties, remained upright and compassionate. At 7 p.m., Raphael called his housekeeper, instructing her to prepare dinner for 3 people. Then he called his driver to take Marina to his penthouse apartment in the most luxurious building in Kensington. "Are you sure you want to do this today?" she asked, clearly nervous. "Maybe we should wait. Give me time to..." The longer we postpone it, the harder it will be, Raphael replied gently. Besides, you've waited 26 years. That's long enough. The meeting with Eleanor Montgomery was exactly as Raphael had predicted, tense, emotionally charged, and ultimately transformative. The family matriarch, at 72, still maintained the elegant posture and penetrating gaze that intimidated executives and politicians. When Raphael revealed Marina's existence, there was first vehement denial, then silent shock, and finally, upon seeing the DNA test and the emerald chain, convulsive sobbing that none of those present had ever witnessed before. "My grandchild," she sobbed, holding Marina's face in her trembling hands. "A part of my Gregory. How did I not see this before?" Marina, who had expected rejection, found herself enveloped in a tight embrace from a grandmother she had just discovered. In the days that followed, the news spread through the family. Cousins, aunts, and uncles, everyone wanted to meet Gregory's daughter, the lost Montgomery heiress. Raphael watched with a mixture of joy and nostalgia as Marina was absorbed into the clan. The loneliness that had characterized her life for so long finally seemed to come to an end. 3 weeks after the revelation, Raphael called an extraordinary board meeting of Montgomery Enterprises. The board, composed mainly of family members and some trusted executives, gathered in the imposing room on the 40th floor of the headquarters building. Andrew, as CFO, sat to Raphael's right. Marina was present for the first time, in a chair strategically positioned on the opposite side of the table. "I thank everyone for their presence," Raphael began, his voice warmer than anyone had ever heard in a corporate meeting. "As you know, the past few weeks have brought significant changes to our family. And where there are changes in the Montgomery family, there are changes in Montgomery Enterprises." The board members exchanged glances. Rumors of a restructuring had been circulating through the corridors for days. "First," Raphael continued, "I would like to formally introduce Marina Montgomery Collins. As of today, she ceases to be my executive assistant and assumes the position of Director of Corporate Social Responsibility, reporting directly to me." Murmurs swept through the room. Montgomery Enterprises had never had a corporate social responsibility department before. Second, in recognition of her right as Gregory Montgomery's heir, Marina will receive 10% of the company's shares, coming from my personal package. The murmurs turned into exclamations of surprise. 10% of Montgomery Enterprises amounted to billions of pounds. Marina looked as shocked as the others. This detail had not been discussed between them previously. "Third," Raphael continued, ignoring the commotion, "I announce a fundamental change in this company's business philosophy. As of today, Montgomery Enterprises will not only be a financial powerhouse, but also a model of ethical and sustainable capitalism." He paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. "We will immediately increase the salaries of all employees at operational levels by 40%. We will implement a premium health plan for all employees, regardless of position. We will create an on-site nursery at the company premises and a scholarship program for employees' children." The faces around the table varied between shock, confusion, and in some cases, clear disapproval. Andrew, however, smiled discreetly. For years, he had tried to convince Raphael to implement more humane management policies. "Furthermore, we will allocate 5% of our annual net profit to social projects, starting with St. Cecilia's home in Nottingham, which will be completely renovated and modernized." One of the oldest board members, Raphael's uncle, raised his hand. "Raphael, with all due respect, these measures will have a significant impact on our profit margin." "The shareholders. The main shareholders are us, the Montgomery family," Raphael interrupted firmly. "And this decision is supported by me, my mother, and now my niece, who together control over 60% of the shares. As for the other shareholders, I guarantee that our new approach will bring long-term value, in addition to significantly improving our market image." The uncle backed down, but did not seem convinced. "Finally," Raphael concluded, "I announce that the negotiation for the acquisition of the Midlands chain is indefinitely suspended." This time the exclamations were louder. The acquisition of the supermarket chain for £500 million had been the company's most important project in recent years. After in-depth analysis, we discovered questionable labor practices in several units of the chain. "We will not acquire companies that exploit their employees. That is no longer the Montgomery philosophy. The meeting continued for another 2 hours, with Raphael detailing each change and responding to the questions and objections of the board members. Marina remained silent most of the time, observing her uncle's transformation with admiration. When the meeting finally ended, many left shaking their heads, incredulous at the company's new direction. Andrew approached Raphael when everyone else had left. "That was the most extraordinary meeting I've ever witnessed in this room. I'm proud of you." Raphael smiled, a genuine smile he rarely displayed. "Thank you for trying to show me the way for so many years. I regret not having listened sooner." Andrew shrugged good-humoredly. "Better late than never. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a finance department to reorganize based on all these changes." When they were alone, Marina finally spoke. 10% of the shares, an entire department. "Raphael, this is the least I can do," he completed. "You are Gregory's daughter. These shares would rightfully be his. And as for the department, I trust you to build it from scratch. I know you have the ideas and the sensitivity needed. But I don't have experience in social project management. Fayasumashi, you'll learn. We'll hire the best consultants. You'll take whatever courses are necessary. I have full confidence in your ability." Marina shook her head, still processing the magnitude of the changes. "What if I don't want to? What if I prefer to follow another path?" Raphael looked at her seriously. "Then I will support your decision, whatever it may be. But I genuinely believe you can make a difference in this position. You can transform Montgomery Enterprises into something your father would approve of." Those words touched Marina deeply. The idea of honoring the memory of the father she had never known was powerful. "I'll try," she finally said, "but I need you to promise me one thing." "What?" "That this isn't just a momentary impulse. That you won't go back on it when the dust settles and the shareholders start to pressure you." Raphael smiled. "I promise. In fact, I intend to go even further. This is just the beginning." The following months were a period of intense transformation, both for Raphael and for the company. Marina moved into her uncle's mansion in the exclusive Hampstead area, a gigantic property that, until then, housed only Raphael and his ghosts. The house, once silent and cold, came alive with the presence of his niece. The new corporate social responsibility department quickly became the center of attention in the company. Marina, overcoming initial insecurity, proved to be a natural leader, with an innovative vision for the social role of corporations. Her projects ranged from renovating schools in disadvantaged communities to creating business incubators for young, low-income entrepreneurs. To the surprise of many, the changes implemented by Raphael began to show positive results faster than expected. The new salary policy and benefits drastically reduced employee turnover. The company's image improved significantly, attracting talent that previously refused offers from Montgomery Enterprises due to its reputation as a toxic environment. 1 year after Marina's collapse in the office, Raphael organized an event to celebrate the anniversary of the Corporate Social Responsibility Department. In the luxurious ballroom of the Shard Hotel, the elite of London's business community, politicians, celebrities, and, of course, the entire Montgomery family gathered. Marina, elegant in a navy blue dress that highlighted her eyes, so similar to Gregory's, circulated through the room presenting the results of the first year of work. By her side, always attentive and protective, was Henry Lawson, a university economics professor she had met during a project with the University of London. Their relationship had progressed rapidly, to Raphael's delight, who saw in the serious and idealistic young man a good complement for his niece. Across the room, Raphael was talking with Andrew and his wife when he felt a light touch on his arm. It was Julia, his ex-wife, invited to the event as a representative of a partner NGO. "Good evening, Raphael. Impressive event." "Julia, thanks for coming." An awkward silence settled between them. Andrew and his wife discreetly moved away, leaving them alone. "I never thought I'd see the day Raphael Montgomery dedicated an entire party to a social project," Julia commented, a slight smile on her lips. Raphael shrugged. "People change. Some never change," she retorted. "But you really have changed. The transformation is visible." "I had a good reason." Both looked at Marina, who was now on stage preparing to give a speech. She's extraordinary, Julia said. She has your business brilliance, but with a heart. She reminds me of Gregory. Raphael nodded, feeling the familiar tightness in his chest when he thought of his brother. I wasted so many years, Julia. So many years chasing profit and power, ignoring what truly matters. It's never too late to start over. He looked at her with curiosity. During their marriage, Julia had always been the voice of reason he systematically ignored. You seem less bitter, she laughed. Perhaps because now I see that you finally understood what I was trying to tell you during our marriage. It's gratifying, even if it's too late for us. On stage, Marina began her speech, first thanking her family, especially grandmother Eleanor and Uncle Raphael, for the opportunity and support. Then, she presented the impressive numbers of the first year. Over 50 projects implemented, directly benefiting more than 10,000 people. But beyond the numbers, she continued, her voice clear and confident, what truly matters are the transformed lives. The employees who can now offer health insurance to their children. The young people from disadvantaged communities who found opportunities through our scholarships. The women who started small businesses with our microcredit program. Raphael watched with pride, barely recognizing the shy assistant he had treated as invisible for so long. And none of this would be possible, Marina continued, without the vision and courage of a person who decided that business success and social responsibility are not mutually exclusive. A person who transformed not just a company, but an entire corporate culture. Her eyes met Raphael's in the crowd. My uncle, Raphael Montgomery, taught me that it's never too late to change, to evolve, to become a better version of oneself. And that true legacy is not measured in money or power, but in the positive impact we make on the lives of others. Raphael felt tears in his eyes, something unthinkable for the former Iceman. Julia, beside him, lightly squeezed his arm in a gesture of silent support. Therefore, Marina concluded, raising a glass, I propose a toast, not just to the corporate social responsibility department, but to second chances, to personal transformations, and to new beginnings. The crowd applauded enthusiastically, raising glasses in a collective toast. Raphael, too, moved to speak, merely raised his glass in his niece's direction. After the speech, as Marina descended from the stage to receive congratulations from the guests, Henry approached her with a mysterious look. You were incredible, he said, kissing her lightly. Thank you. I was nervous. No one noticed. By the way, he hesitated, suddenly serious, I have something to ask you. Marina looked at him with curiosity. What? Henry took a deep breath and, to her surprise and everyone around, knelt down, pulling a small box from his pocket. Marina Montgomery Collins, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife? A murmur of excitement swept through the room. Marina, with tear-filled eyes, was momentarily speechless. Her gaze sought Raphael in the crowd, finding him beside Julia, both smiling encouragingly. Yes, she finally replied, her voice choked with emotion. Yes, I accept. Henry stood up and placed the ring on her finger, a delicate piece with a small emerald strikingly similar to the one on the chain that had belonged to Gregory. The symbolism did not go unnoticed by Marina, who hugged her fiancé tightly. Raphael approached, followed by Eleanor, to congratulate the couple. The matriarch, who in 1 year had transformed from a distant and severe figure into a loving grandmother, embraced Marina with tears in her eyes. Your father would be so proud, she whispered in her granddaughter's ear. And I am. Raphael in turn extended his hand to Henry. Welcome to the family, Professor. I hope you're prepared for the Montgomerys. Henry smiled. I'll do my best, sir. Raphael, he corrected. We're family now. The celebration extended late into the night. To any external observer, it would be just another high society London party. But for Raphael, it represented much more. The birth of a new era, both personal and professional. As he watched Marina and Henry dancing, surrounded by friends and family, Raphael couldn't help but reflect on the incredible journey of the past 12 months. From a cold, results-obsessed CEO to a man reconnected with his humanity. From an empty, silent mansion to a home full of life and joy. What are you thinking about? Julia asked, who had remained by his side for much of the night. How life can completely change in an instant. How blind I was for so long. she smiled understandingly. "The important thing is that now you see." "Yes," he agreed, watching Marina laugh at something Henry whispered in her ear. "Now I see." 5 years had passed since that fateful day Marina collapsed in Raphael's office. Half a decade of profound transformations, both personal and professional, for both of them. Montgomery Enterprises, once known only for its aggressive business practices and impressive profit margins, had become a model of conscious capitalism, studied in business schools across the country. The Corporate Social Responsibility Department, timidly started under Marina's leadership, had expanded into a foundation with its own annual budget of hundreds of millions of pounds and projects in all parts of the United Kingdom. Marina, at 31, was no longer just the director of that department. After a master's degree in social impact management at the London School of Economics and various international courses, she had assumed the executive vice presidency of the company, becoming Raphael's right hand and his probable successor. Her marriage to Henry, now a full professor of behavioral economics at the University of London, had completed 3 years. And to crown the couple's happiness, they awaited the arrival of their first child, a boy who, by unanimous decision, would be named Gregory. Raphael, in turn, had transformed in a way few would believe possible. The Iceman, as he was known in the past, had completely disappeared. In his place emerged a charismatic and humane leader, respected not only for his strategic vision, but also for his ethical approach to business. His reconciliation with Julia surprised everyone, not as a romantic return, but as a deep friendship based on mutual respect. She now directed one of the main NGO partners of the Montgomery Foundation. On that sunny September morning, the mansion in Hampstead was abuzz. Staff scurried back and forth, preparing the final details for the party that would take place in the afternoon. A baby shower to celebrate the imminent arrival of little Gregory. The garden had been decorated with blue and green balloons, the favorite colors of Gregory Sr., as Raphael had made sure to remember. Marina, with an 8-month belly already quite prominent, supervised the preparations from a comfortable armchair on the terrace. Beside her, Henry consulted a list on his tablet. "I think everything's all set," he said, running a hand through his dark hair with a sigh of relief. "The sweets arrive in an hour, the party favors have already been distributed on the tables, and the DJ confirmed his presence." Marina smiled, stroking her belly. "I still think a DJ for a baby shower is overkill." "Tell that to your uncle," Henry laughed. He insisted. Said his great-nephew deserves the best party London has ever seen. As if invoked by the mention, Raphael appeared on the terrace, impeccably dressed even on a Saturday morning. "How's my favorite vice president?" he asked, leaning in to kiss Marina's forehead. "And my great-nephew? Kicking like a pro already." Marina laughed. "We're great. And yes, he won't stop moving. I think he inherited the Montgomery energy." Raphael smiled, proud. The idea of a new Montgomery, especially one who would bear his brother's name, filled him with a joy he had never imagined possible. "Andrew just arrived," he announced. "He's in the office finishing up some contract reviews for Monday. Work on a Saturday?" Henry shook his head disapprovingly. Some things never change at Montgomery Enterprises. "Actually," Raphael corrected good-humoredly, "he mainly came for the party, but since he'll be here, we decided to get ahead on some details of the new acquisition." Marina's eyes widened. "You're not actually going to discuss business during my baby shower, are you?" Raphael raised his hands in surrender. "Only until the guests arrive, I promise. After that, I'm exclusively the doting great-uncle." Marina and Henry exchanged amused glances. Despite all the changes, Raphael remained a born businessman. "I'll help him then," Henry said, standing up. "The faster they finish, the better." "No need," Raphael replied. "In fact, I came to get Marina. Andrew brought something to show her." Intrigued, Marina allowed her uncle to help her stand up. Her belly made every movement a small challenge. "What are you two up to?" she asked as they walked slowly to the office in the east wing of the mansion. "A surprise," Raphael replied mysteriously. "Something we've been planning for months." Raphael's office in the mansion was almost as imposing as the one at the company, spacious, with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a huge solid wood desk, and windows offering a spectacular view of the garden. Andrew waited for them, talking with Julia, who apparently had just arrived as well. "Here's our star," Andrew announced as they entered. "Ready for the big reveal?" Marina greeted them with kisses. "What revelation? You're making me curious." Raphael led her to his chair and then picked up a folder from the desk. "As you know, tomorrow is the annual board meeting, where we will discuss the strategic planning for the next year." Marina nodded. She was perfectly aware as much of the material had been prepared by her team. "What you don't know," Raphael continued, "is that we have an extra item on the agenda, which we have kept secret until now." Andrew smiled, handing her a second folder. "A corporate restructuring proposal." Marina frowned, opening the folder. Her eyes quickly scanned the document, widening in surprise as she understood the content. "This is you're transforming Montgomery Enterprises into a certified B Corp company," Raphael completed, obviously proud of the surprise. "The first British financial holding to obtain this certification. A B Corp, or benefit corporation, was one legally required to consider the impact of its decisions on its employees, customers, suppliers, community, and environment. It was the formal recognition of a commitment to conscious capitalism." "This is incredible," Marina said, moved. "But the board, the minority shareholders, we've already spoken with everyone," Andrew explained. "Surprisingly, there was little resistance. The results of the past 5 years were convincing enough." It was true. Despite massive investments in social and environmental programs, and the salary increases implemented for all levels, Montgomery Enterprises had maintained impressive profitability, though less than in the days of the Iceman. More importantly, its market reputation had drastically improved, attracting new investors and partners aligned with its values. "But that's not all," Raphael added, exchanging a knowing look with Andrew and Julia. "There's one more surprise." He handed Marina a third document, this one with the official letterhead of the UK government. "What's this?" she asked, her eyes scanning the text. Suddenly she stopped, rereading a specific passage. "Gregory Montgomery Institute. You've created a new foundation?" Raphael sat beside her, his voice soft. "Not just a foundation, a university. The first fully privately funded, tuition-free higher education institution in the United Kingdom, focused on social innovation and entrepreneurship for young people from disadvantaged communities." Marina covered her mouth with her hand, her eyes welling up. "And the campus. It will be built in Nottingham," Andrew completed, "in partnership with the local council. The land has already been donated." "Nottingham," Marina repeated, her voice choked with emotion. The city where her mother had lived, where she herself was born and grew up in the orphanage. "The institute will have capacity for 2,000 full-time students," Julia explained, joining the conversation, "with scholarships that include housing, food, and financial aid. The selection process will be based not only on academic merit, but also on leadership potential and commitment to social change. And the best part," Raphael concluded, taking Marina's hands in his, "is that the first director-president will be you." Marina couldn't hold back her tears. It was the culmination of everything they had fought for over the past 5 years, concrete proof that the transformation was real and permanent. "Raphael, I don't know what to say." "Say yes," he smiled. "Say you accept to lead this project alongside your responsibilities at the company. I know it's a lot, especially with the baby coming, but I also know that if anyone can do this, it's you." Marina nodded, unable to speak. Henry, who had been watching the scene from the doorway, approached to hug her. "Congratulations, my love," he said, kissing her temple. "You deserve this. And don't worry about little Gregory. Between me, your uncle, your grandmother, and the entire Montgomery Enterprises team, he'll have more babysitters than he could ever wish for." Everyone laughed, easing the emotion of the moment. Marina wiped her tears and hugged each person present. "Thank you," she finally said, "for believing in me, for giving me a family, for everything." Raphael smiled, feeling that familiar pang in his chest, no longer of pain or regret, but of gratitude and fulfillment. "We thank you, Marina. You taught us more than you imagine." An employee discreetly knocked on the door, announcing that the first guests were arriving. The emotional conversation would have to be interrupted for the party. In the afternoon, the garden of the Montgomery mansion filled with life and joy. Over 200 guests attended to celebrate the imminent arrival of little Gregory. Family, friends, colleagues, business partners, and even some of the nuns from St. Cecilia's home, including the now elderly Sister Constance, who had made sure to come from Nottingham especially for the occasion. Marina, seated in a comfortable armchair decorated like a throne, received gifts and hugs, radiant in her emerald green dress, the color of Gregory's eyes, the color of the pendant that had belonged to her father. Eleanor Montgomery, at 77, remained elegant and stately beside her granddaughter, occasionally wiping a discreet tear. The matriarch's transformation had been almost as impressive as Raphael's, from a cold and controlling woman to a loving grandmother and an eager great-grandmother. When most of the guests had arrived, Raphael asked for everyone's attention, raising a glass of non-alcoholic champagne in solidarity with his pregnant niece. "I want to thank everyone for being here on this special day," he began. "We are here to celebrate not only the arrival of a new life, but also a cycle that comes full circle. 5 years ago, I received a phone call that forever changed the course of my existence." He briefly narrated the story many there already knew: Marina's collapse, the discovery of their kinship, the personal and professional transformation that followed. He spoke of his brother, how Gregory had always been the best of us, and how, through Marina and now the baby, his spirit lived on. "Today," he continued, his voice gaining strength, "I have the pleasure of announcing 2 great pieces of news. First, the certification of Montgomery Enterprises as a B Corp company, formalizing our commitment to a more humane and sustainable capitalism." Enthusiastic applause echoed through the garden, especially from the team who had worked hard to achieve this goal. "Second," Raphael continued, gesturing for Marina and Henry to join him, "is the creation of the Gregory Montgomery Institute, the first tuition-free university, fully funded by private initiative in the United Kingdom, focused on talented young people from low-income communities." More applause, even more vibrant. Marina, beside her uncle, smiled through tears. Henry held her hand firmly, proud. "These 2 initiatives," Raphael concluded, "represent the true legacy we wish to build. Not a financial empire based on greed and rampant competition, but an ecosystem of shared prosperity, where the success of one means the success of all." He raised his glass once more. "So I toast to the future, to little Gregory, who will grow up in a world that we hope will be a little better thanks to the efforts of his family. To Marina and Henry, who taught me the meaning of courage and integrity. And to all of you, who are part of this journey of transformation." Glasses rose in a collective toast, as the afternoon sun bathed the garden with an almost magical golden light. After the speeches, as Marina descended from the stage to receive greetings from the guests, she was surprised by a special video prepared by the Foundation's team. Emotional testimonials from people impacted by Montgomery Enterprises' social projects over the past 5 years. Young people who received scholarships, mothers who started small businesses, communities that had schools renovated, employees who could offer adequate medical treatment to their children thanks to the new health plan. "See?" Raphael whispered in his niece's ear as they watched the testimonials together. "This is the true legacy. Not the billions in bank accounts, but the transformed lives." Marina nodded, too moved to speak. Her hand rested on her belly, where little Gregory moved vigorously, as if he too wanted to participate in the celebration. The party continued animatedly until early evening. When the last guests were leaving, Marina, exhausted but happy, retired to rest a little. Raphael accompanied her to the stairs leading to her room. "It was a perfect day," she said, hugging him. "Thank you for everything, Uncle Raphael." "I thank you, Marina, for coming into my life, for giving me a second chance." She smiled, holding his hand. "You know what's funny? I spent so long trying to get close to you to find a family, and in the end, it was I who found a family through you," he completed. At that moment, Marina made a surprised expression, putting her hand to her belly. "What is it?" Raphael asked, concerned. "Nothing much," she laughed. "Just your great-nephew doing somersaults." "Want to feel?" She took Raphael's hand and placed it on her belly. After a few seconds, he felt it, a firm, decisive movement beneath his palm. "Incredible," he murmured, marveling. "See? He's already eager to meet his great-great-uncle." Raphael smiled, feeling an emotion he never would have imagined possible a few years earlier. And I'm eager to meet him, to see the extraordinary man he will become with parents like you. 3 weeks later, in the early hours of an October morning, Raphael's phone rang, waking him from a peaceful sleep. It was Henry, his voice trembling with excitement. "We're going to the maternity ward. Marina's gone into labor." Raphael dressed in record time and headed to St. Thomas's Hospital, the same one where Marina had been hospitalized 5 years earlier, the setting for the beginning of that extraordinary journey. On the way, he called Eleanor, Andrew, Julia, and other family members. In the hours that followed, the maternity waiting room filled with anxious Montgomerys. Raphael paced back and forth, unable to calm down, despite Andrew's good-humored attempts to distract him. Finally, at 6:43 a.m., Henry appeared in the corridor, his face exhausted but radiant. "It's a boy. 8 pounds 6 ounces, healthy and strong." The explosion of joy was immediate. Hugs, tears, congratulations. Eleanor, always so composed, sobbed openly in Raphael's arms. "When can we see them?" Raphael asked, barely containing his eagerness. "In a few minutes," Henry replied. "They're just finishing the routine procedures." Half an hour later, in small groups, they were able to enter the room. Marina was reclining in bed, tired but radiant, holding a small bundle wrapped in a light blue blanket. When it was Raphael's turn, he entered hesitantly, almost afraid. Marina smiled when she saw him and gestured for him to approach. "Come meet your great-nephew." Raphael slowly approached the bed. His heart quickened as he saw the tiny face emerging from the blanket, chubby cheeks, dark fuzz on the top of his head, half-closed eyes. "Gregory," Marina introduced proudly. "Gregory Collins Lawson Montgomery." With trembling hands, Raphael accepted the invitation to hold the baby. The tiny bundle felt impossibly light and at the same time immensely precious in his arms. "Hello, Gregory," he whispered, his voice choked. "I'm your great-great-uncle Raphael." As if in response, the baby briefly opened his eyes that Raphael could swear had the same intense sparkle as his brother's. "He has his eyes," he said, moved. "Gregory's eyes." Marina smiled, nodding. "I know. It was the first thing I noticed." Henry, beside the bed, watched the scene with emotion. "We chose the last name with you in mind, Raphael Montgomery, so he'll always remember his roots, the extraordinary story that united our family." Raphael looked up, surprised and touched by the gesture. "Thank you. It's an honor." For a few minutes they remained silent, absorbing the magic of the moment, the miracle of new life, the continuation of a legacy, the future full of possibilities that opened before them. "You know," Raphael finally said, gently rocking the baby in his arms, 5 years ago, when I received that call from the hospital, I never could have imagined where we would end up. How a single decision, abandoning an important meeting to see how you were, would completely change the course of our lives." Marina nodded, understanding perfectly. "The most important decisions rarely seem important at the moment we make them." "True," Raphael agreed. "That day I chose humanity over business for the first time in my adult life. And that choice led me back to myself, to the person I should have been all along." Henry smiled, sitting on the edge of the bed beside his wife. "And now here we are, a complete family, a new Gregory Montgomery to continue the story. A very different story from the one I had been writing," Raphael completed, gently handing the baby back to Marina. "A story of redemption, of second chances, of love." He watched Marina settle her son in her arms, her gaze overflowing with maternal love. The same young woman who 5 years earlier had collapsed in his office from malnutrition and exhaustion was now a strong, fulfilled woman, surrounded by love and purpose. "Thank you," Raphael said, tears streaming freely down his face, "for saving me from the prison I built for myself, for teaching me the true meaning of success and legacy." Marina extended her free hand, holding his firmly. "We saved each other, Uncle Raphael, and now together we will build a better world for little Gregory and for all the children who come after him." As the morning sun streamed into the room through the half-open blinds, Raphael Montgomery, formerly known as the Iceman, now simply Uncle Raphael or great-great-uncle, felt a peace he had never experienced. The cycle was complete. The legacy assured, Not a legacy of fortunes and power, but of humanity, compassion, and purpose. The true legacy of the Montgomerys. End of story, dear listeners. We hope this story has deeply touched your hearts. Raphael and Marina's journey reminds us that it's never too late to change, to rediscover our humanity, and to build a legacy that truly matters. For more emotional narratives like this, be sure to subscribe to our channel by clicking the button on the right. Leave a like if this story moved you, and share your own transformation experiences in the comments. Each week we bring new stories that explore the complexity of human relationships and the power of love. After all, as Raphael discovered, true success is not measured in figures, but in transformed lives. Until our next meeting,